They say trading is simple until emotion gets involved. Numbers on a screen become reflections of your worth. Wins feel like validation. Losses feel like judgment. And somewhere in between, the line between skill and luck begins to blur. This is not a story about strategy. It's a story about the mind behind the strategy. A story of how success can quietly become self-sabotage, of how confidence can evolve into arrogance, and how every trader at some point must face the hardest opponent of all themselves. Welcome to Mind Over Markets. Case Gerzo 3. Win streak, overconfidence, drawdown. A real psychological breakdown of what happens when victory blinds awareness, and the market humbles the mind that forgets to stay grounded. I remember the week I couldn't lose. Every chart I touched moved the way I wanted. Every entry felt precise. Every exit felt perfect. And with each win, something inside me began to shift. At first it was quiet, a whisper of pride telling me I finally understood the market. But whispers grow louder when you listen too long. And soon, that whisper became a voice that said, "You've got this. You're unstoppable." For most traders, that's where it begins. The win streak, the high, the illusion. You feel in sync with the market, as if you can sense its rhythm, predict its next move. But what you're really feeling is dopamine, a flood of confidence that makes you believe success is a skill, not a moment. And in that state, you start to forget the market doesn't owe you anything. 6 trades, 6 wins, each one feeding the same story: I'm getting better. I finally cracked it. This is who I'm meant to be. You tell yourself it's skill, not luck. That the losing days were lessons and the winning days are proof. And maybe for a while that's true, because trading does reward discipline, patience, and clarity. But beneath those wins, something else starts to grow, something subtle, something dangerous. Ego. Ego doesn't arrive all at once. It sneaks in. It hides behind logic, behind phrases like the setup is strong or the market is confirming my bias. It feels rational. It feels professional. But what it's really saying is I can't be wrong. And once you start to believe that, your edge begins to decay. You see, overconfidence is not a feeling of power. It's the absence of doubt. And doubt, the healthy kind, is what keeps you alive in the market. It's what keeps you small when things are going well. It's what reminds you that risk never disappears. It only hides. But in the heat of a win streak, who wants to think about risk? You feel invincible. You feel chosen. The charts start to look easier. You stop waiting for confirmation. You increase your size. You trade setups you used to avoid. You don't call it gambling, though. You call it trusting your instinct. You call it leaning into momentum. You call it feeling the flow. But what you're really doing is betting on emotion dressed as confidence. And emotion, it's a master of disguise. It can sound logical. It can look like experience. It can even mimic discipline. But at its core, it wants one thing: to feel good. And nothing feels better than winning. The irony is the same chemical that drives our joy, dopamine, also blinds our judgment. It's nature's way of saying, you're doing great, keep going, even when you're running straight toward danger. Every trader who's been in this game long enough knows the moment, the one where you start ignoring your own rules. You say to yourself, this time, it's different. You move your stop. You double your size. You justify it with logic, but deep down it's just the high talking. Confidence becomes addiction. Addiction becomes blindness. And blindness always leads to drawdown. That's the cruel rhythm of trading psychology. A cycle that repeats in every account, in every chart, in every trader who hasn't learned the difference between confidence and control. When you win too much, you forget why you started trading in the first place. It's no longer about the process. It's about the feeling. You don't want to be right anymore. You want to feel right. And that's where the market waits for you. Because the market doesn't punish greed. It punishes attachment. The moment you start needing to win, you lose the freedom to think clearly. And the moment you lose clarity, every decision becomes emotional. That's what happened to me. After that sixth win, I felt unstoppable. I told myself I earned the right to trade bigger. The next trade wasn't even part of my plan. It was pure impulse, a trade taken because I wanted to win again, not because I should. And when it went against me, I didn't accept it. I watched it tick down point by point, waiting for the reversal that never came. The same mind that had been calm and logical a week ago was now bargaining with the market. Just one pullback, just one bounce, then I'll exit. That's the danger of overconfidence. It turns probability into certainty in your mind. And certainty is poison in trading because nothing is certain. Not the chart, not the setup, not the outcome. The only certainty is uncertainty itself. Yet we chase control. We crave the illusion that our skill can bend the market. But the truth is the market bends us. It exposes what's already inside. If there's greed, it finds it. If there's fear, it magnifies it. If there's ego, it destroys it. Most traders think drawdown begins with a losing trade. It doesn't. Drawdown begins with a mindset shift the moment you stop respecting risk. The moment you think you've outgrown uncertainty. That's when the seeds of loss are planted. And by the time you realize it, they've already taken root. You tell yourself it's just variance. You tell yourself you'll recover it on the next trade. You even convince yourself that the market owes you one. But the market doesn't owe. It only mirrors. It mirrors your mindset, your patience, your discipline, your fear. When I look back, I realize I wasn't trading the market anymore. I was trading my reflection. The first loss didn't bother me, not at first. I told myself it was just one trade, a small correction after a perfect run. I even smiled thinking this is healthy, a reminder to stay grounded. But deep down, I didn't believe it. Because when you've been winning, even a small red number feels personal. It feels unfair. It feels like something's been taken from you, not money, but identity. The next day, I took another trade. It wasn't in my plan, but I needed to prove something to myself. The setup wasn't clean. The structure wasn't there, but I entered anyway. And when it started to go against me, I didn't cut it. I told myself the market was just shaking weak hands. I told myself to trust the process. But it wasn't the process I was trusting, it was my ego. That's when the drawdown began. Not the one on the chart, the one inside my mind. The slow erosion of clarity, the tightening in your chest, the quiet voice that says, what if this time you really messed up? I started watching every tick. Every candle felt like judgment. Each loss was heavier than the last, not because of the money, but because of what it said about me. I wasn't just losing trades anymore, I was losing confidence. That's when the revenge mindset kicked in. It's subtle at first. It tells you to get it back. It whispers you can fix this in one trade. It reminds you how good winning felt and promises that feeling is just one position away. You know it's wrong, but you do it anyway. You add to losers. You widen stops. You move targets closer. You turn your system into chaos, all in the name of control. And as the account starts to bleed, something darker takes over denial. You stop checking your risk metrics. You stop journaling. You stop being honest with yourself. You stare at the screen and tell yourself it's fine, but it's not fine. The irony is the more you fight the loss, the more you feed it. Because in trading, acceptance is power. But ego can't accept. Ego must win. That's why overconfidence always ends in drawdown. Not because the market changed, but because you did. The same trader who followed every rule now breaks them all. The same trader who respected the plan now trades from emotion. The same trader who once said, I don't chase the market now can't stop running after it. And you tell yourself this is temporary, you'll bounce back, you just need one good trade. But that one good trade never comes, not when your mind is this clouded. Because trading isn't about predicting price, it's about regulating emotion. And once emotion takes over, the chart becomes noise. Every candle becomes personal. Every move feels like an attack. You stop seeing probabilities and start seeing threats. You don't trade setups anymore. You trade fear, guilt, and hope. Hope. That's the final stage before collapse. It sounds peaceful, but it's not. Hope is the most dangerous emotion in trading because hope means you've already surrendered logic. It means you're no longer in control. And when logic leaves, the market takes everything. That's what happened to me. After the fifth losing trade, I stopped counting. The numbers blurred. The charts didn't look familiar anymore. I wasn't trading setups, I was trading desperation. When your deep in drawdown time slows down, you stare at the screen for hours, watching nothing, thinking about everything. The mind starts looping. How did I get here? What happened to my discipline? Maybe I was never good at this. And that's when it hits you. The real pain of drawdown isn't financial, it's psychological. It's the collapse of identity. Because when trading is personal, a losing streak doesn't just take your money, it takes your confidence, your purpose, your peace. You start to avoid looking at the balance. You tell yourself you'll review later. You tell yourself it's just a phase. But every day feels heavier. You wake up anxious. You open the charts not with curiosity but with dread, and yet you can't walk away because part of you still believes you can fix it. That's the cruel beauty of trading psychology. It keeps you trapped between hope and fear, always oscillating, never free. In those moments, the screen becomes a mirror. You don't see the market anymore. You see yourself, your habits, your insecurities, your hidden impulses. Trading doesn't expose your skill. It exposes your mind. You realize the market has no agenda. It's not punishing you. It's simply reflecting you. If you're greedy, it shows greed. If you're fearful, it amplifies fear. If you're arrogant, it humbles you. Every tick is feedback. Every drawdown is a lesson in disguise. The market doesn't take your money, it takes your illusions. And when those illusions die, so does your comfort. But that's also where real growth begins. For weeks, I fought that truth. I blamed the volatility. I blamed news events. I blamed everything except the one variable that mattered me. It wasn't the win streak that caused the drawdown. It was my reaction to it. The belief that I was untouchable, the refusal to stay humble when everything was working, the assumption that I had mastered uncertainty. But you never master uncertainty. You only learn to coexist with it. That's what separates professional traders from emotional ones. Professionals expect randomness. They plan for imperfection. They know a win streak doesn't mean mastery, and a drawdown doesn't mean failure. They don't tie their self-worth to the outcome of a trade. That realization came to me slowly in silence, not during a trade, not after a loss, but one night long after the screens were off when the only thing left was reflection. I remember staring at my notebook, flipping through old journal entries, confident handwriting from good days, scattered notes from bad ones, and it hit me. The difference between the trader I wanted to be and the trader I had become wasn't knowledge, it was awareness. Awareness of emotion, awareness of ego, awareness of when I stopped being a student of the market and started being a performer for it. That's when the healing began, not from winning, but from understanding. Because every drawdown, if you look deep enough, has a message. It's the market saying, slow down. It's the universe reminding you that success without humility is temporary. It's life teaching you that growth requires loss. And so I began again, not with more indicators or new strategies, but with a new question. How do I trade my mind before I trade the market? That single question changed everything. When you strip everything away, the charts, the profits, The system's what's left is you. And if you don't understand that person, no amount of strategy will save you. I began to study myself the same way I once studied price action. Patterns, reactions, triggers. What made me hesitate? What made me rush? What made me abandon logic and chase emotion? It was humbling to realize that my biggest losses had nothing to do with analysis. They were reflections of unhealed impulses, the need to prove, to control, to win. And those impulses were invisible until the market brought them to light. That's what the market does. It shines a spotlight on the parts of you that you hide from the world. Impatience, fear of missing out, insecurity disguised as confidence. It doesn't care about who you pretend to be. It only responds to who you are. So I stopped fighting it. I stopped trying to conquer the market and started trying to understand myself within it. Every morning before opening the platform, I wrote one line in my journal. Trade what you see, not what you feel. Simple, but powerful. Because feeling is seductive. It tells you stories. It paints illusions of certainty. It convinces you that this time will be different. But the chart never lies. Only the mind does. Over time, that habit changed me. I began to notice the spaces between thoughts, the pauses before decisions, moments where I could intervene and ask, is this logic or emotion? Sometimes I caught it. Sometimes I didn't. But every time I noticed, I grew stronger. Confidence returned, but it was quieter this time. Not the loud, euphoric confidence of a win streak, the calm, grounded confidence of self-awareness. A belief not in control, but in resilience. Because I learned that mastery isn't about always winning. It's about staying composed when you lose. I rebuilt slowly, trade by trade, no rush, no obsession with recovering losses, just process, just structure, just presence. And something beautiful happened. The anxiety faded, the noise quieted, the charts looked clear again. Not because the market changed, but because I did. That's when I understood the real secret of trading psychology. It's not about controlling emotion. It's about understanding it, seeing it as data, not identity. Fear is information. Euphoria is information. Doubt is information. They're not enemies. They're signals. Signals that tell you who's trading the rational mind or the emotional one. When you begin to see emotion that way, drawdown loses its power. You stop fearing it. You start learning from it. You realize that every decline is a mirror showing you what still needs work. Drawdown becomes dialogue. The market speaks and you listen. It says, here's where you got attached. Here's where you stopped following your rules. Here's where your ego took control. And when you listen without judgment, the pain transforms into clarity. That's the paradox of growth. The very experiences that hurt the most are the ones that teach the most. Months later, my results improved again, but this time it felt different. There was no thrill in the wins, no panic in the losses, just rhythm, flow, peace. I finally understood that trading success isn't measured by the size of your account. It's measured by the stability of your mind. Because when your mind is steady, the market becomes your ally. When your mind is chaotic, the market becomes your mirror. The truth is, every trader will face this cycle. Win streak, overconfidence, drawdown, reflection, rebirth. It repeats until you learn to see it not as failure, but as feedback. When you embrace that, you stop fearing the cycle. You start flowing with it. You ride the waves instead of fighting them. And that's when trading stops being emotional combat and becomes emotional mastery. I look back on that case now, the streak, the fall, the pain, and I'm grateful. Because without it, I would have stayed blind. Winning taught me nothing. Losing taught me everything. It taught me humility, that the market doesn't care who you are. It taught me patience, that clarity takes time. It taught me detachment, that freedom begins where need ends. Most traders search for the perfect strategy, but the real strategy is internal. Master your state and any system will work. Ignore your state and no system ever will. Every day now, I remind myself the goal is not to win every trade. The goal is to trade without losing yourself. Because in the end, trading isn't a battle against the market. It's a conversation with your own psychology. And if you listen closely enough, it tells you everything you need to know. It tells you when you're aligned. It tells you when you're drifting. It tells you when your motives are pure and when they're driven by fear. That awareness, that constant self-observation is what transforms trading from chaos into craft. So when the next win streak comes, I won't celebrate too loudly. I'll smile, stay humble, and remind myself, this too shall pass. And when the next drawdown arrives, I won't panic. I'll breathe, stay present, and whisper the same thing. This too shall pass. Because everything in this game is temporary. The profits, the losses, the emotions. The only thing permanent is the person you become through them. Trading is not about conquering the market. It's about understanding yourself deeply enough that the market can no longer control you. It's about transforming fear into focused greed, into patience, overconfidence into awareness. It's about learning to stay centered while the world around you fluctuates. When you reach that point, you stop chasing. You start allowing. You stop reacting. You start observing. You stop needing the market to validate you. You start using it to refine you. And that's the essence of trading psychology, not emotionless, but emotionally intelligent. Not detached from feeling, but detached from identification. You still feel the highs, you still feel the lows, but you don't let them define you. You simply watch, learn, adapt, continue. That's how traders evolve. Not by avoiding pain, but by integrating it. Not by fighting ego, but by seeing through it. Not by chasing certainty, but by embracing uncertainty as the only constant. The drawdown that once broke me became the foundation that rebuilt me. It stripped away illusion and left only truth. And in that truth, I found freedom. So when I speak to new traders now, I don't warn them about volatility. I warn them about themselves. Because the most dangerous market condition is not external, it's internal. If you can master that, you can master anything. Win streaks will come, drawdowns will follow. But through it all, you remain unchanged, centered, disciplined, aware. And that, my friend, is the real edge. The edge isn't a secret indicator. It isn't hidden in price action or algorithms. It lives inside your ability to remain calm when others break, to stay humble when you're winning, to stay patient when you're losing, to keep trading not for validation but for evolution. Because in the end, the market is not testing your strategy. It's testing your mind. And the trader who understands that never truly loses. In the end, trading isn't about beating the market. It's about learning who you become in the process. The wins teach you what's possible. The losses teach you what's true. And both are essential because without the fall, there is no rise. So the next time you find yourself on a winning streak, pause, breathe. Remember this story. Confidence is a tool, not an identity. Humility is your anchor, and awareness, your only real edge. This is Mind Over Markets, where every chart is a mirror, every trade is a lesson, and every loss a step toward mastery. Until next time, trade your mind before you trade the market.